Welcome to Part of the Arts, where we dive deeper into the vibrant world of our industry. I'm your host, Rebecca Godden, and joining us today is the brilliant Django Pinter. Yes, that's his real name. With over 8 years of experience in the arts, our guest has worn many hats across many disciplines, from visual art and graphic design to theatre, film and digital arts. Growing up in London with a love for drawing, Django transferred this passion into stunning graphic novels, captivating animated projects, and compelling video content, even winning awards for his short films. This journey started by undertaking the BFI Future Film course, as well as their VFX residential programme and the BAFTA mentorship scheme. Now, Django has captivated audiences both centre stage and behind the scenes, within theatre and in film, on projects ranging from commercials to Netflix shows, and facilitated engaging workshops as well at prestigious institutions like the National Theatre and the Barbican. And that's not all. During the pandemic, he really embraced tech and digital arts, creating innovative projects, including a music video making app for the English National Opera and a puzzle video game, which is set for release very soon. Django's artistic journey is as diverse as it is inspiring. So whether you're an artist, a filmmaker, or simply someone who loves to explore the industry, you won't want to miss this conversation. Right, let's jump in. Hello, Django. Nice to see you this morning.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on to the first online recording of my podcast.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm back in 2021, but this is great. So thank you so much. How are you doing today?
Doing okay. Slightly post-flu, but you know, I feel like that's happening to a lot of people at the moment. So if I'm go off coughing frantically, I've put in my excuses already. So.
I love that. Yeah, I've got a coldy household as well, so it's fine. Don't worry. So I start the podcast every time with a little icebreaker that I've asked you to think about. So in the industry, we are often oversharers, overthinkers, and we might just say the first thing that pops into our mind out loud, and then afterwards think, I probably shouldn't have said that, or I could have handled it better, or I've exposed a bit too much of myself there. Do you have something that's happened to you recently that is like that?
Not really. So I don't know if that's the case for me, and quite a few people I know actually, because I wonder if it's the same across the arts, or whether it's mostly in performing arts, because I do a lot of work with people behind the scenes and a lot of people working in visual arts and stuff like that, who tend to be a lot more inward facing. But I definitely have. I've probably said stuff I shouldn't have said. In fact, I know I have. I've definitely done a few cases where someone's shown me their work and I've been less than bubbly and kind. Enthused, in response, which wasn't very kind. But I was thinking also as well of times when I haven't said enough, or I've slightly done the opposite. Instead of jumping out with the truth, jumping out with a lie. And I was thinking about one of the first jobs I had out of university was I was working for an organization that did a yearly course for young artists, teaching them facilitation skills. And the company was going through a bit of a transition, and there were a few things that were up in the air, and they didn't manage to book in a course leader in time for it. So they put a word around, and I replied being like, yeah, I can be an assistant on this. And they gave me the job, the full job. So I was fresh out of university teaching people, some of whom were older than me, how to run sessions. And I'd never I'd run sessions before, but I'd never run a course with more than one session. And I was about to do a 6-month course.
And that's the like imposter syndrome, but actually, I don't have the skills.
Yeah, so it was great. I basically called up loads of people I knew who'd been doing it for years and got loads of advice. But one of the things that happened was I consistently skirted around how old I was. I basically tried to imply that I was older than everyone in the room. throughout the whole thing. And I was doing this incredibly successfully, and I was having a conversation with someone about what happens if they ask me my age. And the person I was talking to was just like, just say you're 28 or something, which I wasn't. I was 22 at the time.
You were like, what do I look at? Did you have the beard at the time?
I think I had the stubble.
Okay.
It was all going swimmingly until we had a guest facilitator in who was doing a session on inclusion and accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, lovely. Except that they were doing a series of exercises about, identifiers and like, lining up according to X, Y, and Z. And one of them was getting a line for how like oldest to youngest. And I was joining it as a participant. And I was like, shit. And
where do I go?
Walked right down the end to be like, I'm the oldest in the room. And we had to go down the line and say our ages.
Okay.
And from youngest to oldest. And it was going down the line. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it got to me. And the person before me had just said 24. So I said 25.
Oh, that's a bit better than the 28 that you thought
yeah,
you were
going to.
The whole
group looked at me and went, I thought you were older. so I was being like, God, I should have said older than that.
Also, I mean, your acting skills there, Django, within that room,
and then what was and then just to make matters worse, what then happened was part of the course, the end of the course is they facilitate a 5-day program with their own participants. Mm-hmm. So they've been doing it for 6 months, and at the end they do 5 days of making a piece of creative art with their own participants. And we didn't get enough signups for their thing. So I ended up acting as a participant in their 5-day workshop, and I shaved the beard. And so
you were like, I need to look really young now. I've absolutely
exactly.
blown
So
away
I had
with
to
that.
be younger than them. And at one point I was asked how old I was in that. And I said 20. So that so
you were method.
It was a sort of like, it's like a scene from, a really boring Mrs. Doubtfire, where I was like pretending to be older than I was for one group, and then pretending to be someone who didn't know them and younger than the rest of them.
Oh my God. By the end of it, you must have an absolute like age identity crisis. Like,
by the end,
am I?
Yeah, so by the end I was running around feeling completely ridiculous, thinking this all could have been avoided if they'd managed to get the right person in the first place who'd done this before. So, but I learned a lot, and I got a lot of work out of it afterwards, because after that I had on my CV, I've led a 6-month course on facilitation for young artists.
So it was worth the stress of being an age.
It was worth the lie, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And also credit to you for actually just going into it and just being like, you know what, I'm going to tap up my network, which we should do more in this industry, and ask people for advice. And then I'm just going to go in and kind of facilitate my socks off with a bit of acting in there.
I've got a bad streak of doing that when I'm applying for stuff, whatever the opposite of imposter syndrome is, of applying for stuff I'm definitely not qualified for. And then
talking yourself up, you're good at.
Yeah. And then having to learn frantically how to do that job going.
You're not like one of those people, like I use like an acting example, that will put on their spotlight, confidently can ride a horse, and they rode a horse like once when they were 4.
Didn't Anne Hathaway do that to get onto Brokeback Mountain? She said she could ride a horse, and then had to frantically learn from scratch in order to get into it.
And I think quite a few actors have, gone to big films and said that in like chat shows, like, well, I said it, and then you get the part, and then you just learn it.
You got to make it happen. Yeah, exactly.
That's what actors do anyway. So it's a script. If it's a skill, we do it. That's what people in the arts do as well. And there is a lot of that. Like, it's that fake it till you make it thing. And I think as people in the arts, we've got to be our best cheerleaders, and we've actually got to believe in ourselves and talk ourselves up, because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah.
So you got to do what you got to do to get the job.
Yeah.
I completely get that. And I think when it goes for applying for stuff, if it looks interesting, What's the worst thing that
Yeah.
happens? You're going to get a no.
Yeah. And I've had a few times before where people have reached out to me being like, can you do this? And I think no, but I say, let me get back to you. There was one recently where I wish I'd done it. Someone reached out and asked if I could mix a gig for them. They were doing a live music gig. I know I can do that. I haven't ever set up a drum kit before. Actually, that's by myself. So I thought, I'm going to look like an idiot setting this up, but maybe I do. Anyway, I ended up passing it on to a friend, and that friend's now just gotten a load of work off the same person. So I'm now kicking myself thinking I should have faked it till I maked it.
There's always those things though that I think also there's a balance of like the anxiety that something will give you as well.
You don't want to look like that.
The more I've been in the industry, the longer I've been in the industry, I do sometimes think, okay, what is worth it from a kind of professional point of view, but also an anxiety-inducing point of view.
Yeah.
Like, the other stuff that goes into like what people don't see, all the bits behind it. It's like, am I willing to put myself through that? I don't know. So I think that's something to also consider. So maybe that was meant to be passed on. You know, what is that saying? What passes you wasn't meant for you. There we go.
Something like that.
I'm a philosopher now. And talking about all the different jobs, so you kind of, your career spans a lot of different art forms within the creative arts, and we know each other through one of those art forms.
Yes.
And you do a lot of kind of video, sound work for us at Blue Apple Theatre, which we love. And that can also include any other duties like coming to Rome and being an Italian translator.
Yeah, that was fun.
As well.
And, a bit of a steward for, both cast and Richard a little bit.
Absolutely. And like being that kind of, it's really nice, when we're in theatre, a lot of the time the technical team changes every time you do a show. Even at a venue, there's quick turnaround, or there's multiple people that work a rota, so you're not necessarily going to get the same people. You're not even necessarily going to get the same people for the run of something. And we know they're all professionals. They can all do what they do. But I think what's really special with the connection we've got with you is that, like you said, the cast know you, the crew know you. It's like a safe pair of hands, but you're also a very yes person, which I think we've just touched upon with your story. You're very much like, well, I can do it. You're a brilliant illustrator as well. You've made shadow puppets for us. You just randomly will just draw something just from us saying something creatively, and then suddenly project that onto the stage. And we're like, wow. It's like you really are a doer, which I think is such a good, a suit of yours. And I wonder, because you're such a doer and you do lots of different things across the industry, how do like your nearest and dearest describe what you do or grasp what you do? Like, do they know what you do for work?
So my parents are both good at it because my parents were both freelancers and did a very similar spread. So I copied them. So they're very good at the whole thing. A lot of people I know will only know me kind of from one thing or another. So I have a lot of people that I work with in film or in theatre or whatever, and they'll know me more from that side than another. The person who I think struggles the most, possibly because she really wants to get it right, is my partner's mum, who she is always like double checking with me to be like, but you do this, and it's like, yeah, don't worry.
I love that though, that she wants to be your cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really sweet. But it's often like, it's been quite, people ask, what do you do? It's hard because I think for a lot of people, what I do is interesting, but it's quite boring to say a list. So,
100%.
So when people ask what I do and I go, well, I've started recently trying to say, what have I done recently? What am I doing next week? Or something like that.
Oh, that's such a good way to look at it.
To try and say, I do lots of stuff, for example, this, and I'm doing this, which works better some weeks than others, though. So sometimes it's more, so sometimes it'll be like, last week I was sitting on my butt at home waiting for work, and next week I'm I'm doing some admin for someone, and that sounds incredibly boring. And then another week it'll be like, last week I was in the theatre, and next week I'm on a film set. So I guess there's pros and cons.
That's the kind of ebbs and flows of the industry, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I guess because what I've done is I'm at the moment riding peaks and troughs of like different industries and trying to make them all keep afloat in as many as possible, which is fun.
And exactly what you said about we're like our own sales pitch, like a walking sales pitch. Whoever you meet could be an opportunity when you're freelance. And I think as well, we want to make sure that we're like selling ourselves well. So I do sometimes freak out, especially if I'm talking to someone that is in the arts in some capacity, and I think this could be a little networking opportunity. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh God, I've got to make it sound really good. But I want to make sure I know all of my skills without saying I'm a director, an actor, a facilitator, and it's without just kind of listing titles.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny as well because I do lots of stuff where I'm sort of spreading the board with what I'm doing, like trying to do lots of different bits. And I work in a lot of industries where that's not a sign that you're an expert at anything. So there's a lot of the time where, especially film, people want you to be good at one thing. Because then they can trust you on that thing and they can get you in on it.
And there's so many parts of filmmaking. There's a role for every single thing, isn't there? So they just want that specialist.
Exactly. So, but I've done things before where, I've been helping on friends' short film shoots, and, I'm just helping out. And I did one where I was helping out. I was covering because they had a soundy dropout, and I do bits of sound. So I came in with my little boom pole and my recorder and my headphones and made eye contact with someone, and they looked at me and they were like, you were doing lighting on the last thing I saw you on. And I was like, yeah. And I was thinking, they're thinking the sound is screwed. We are like
hang on a minute, you just got a lighting guy in.
Exactly. They've got a guy who was helping out on lighting last time. What are they doing? I did watch the film and the sound turned out okay. So, phew. But it was quite funny, like looking at them and suddenly having a moment of like, I must look so unprofessional right now because they know me from another job.
And it's really hard to wear loads of hats and know how to represent yourself in that time.
And there's a company I do bits of work for, and I've done bits of editing for them, and I've done bits of motion graphics for them, and I help out on their shoots sometimes. And they were mentioning something about animation, and I was like trying to like get in that I do bits of animation. And I think by saying that, I must have made the fact that I do animation sound like I don't do it very well because they know me from doing all these other things as well. And
you're kind of, again, you just trying to shoehorn stuff in to not miss that opportunity.
Exactly. I was trying to get a job. But
then we all are. I think there should be no shame in it, but our industry is different to a lot where most jobs you're not always trying to get the next job. And so that's really tricky. And talking of kind of the span of your work and having lots of different projects on the go, I love this question with my guests so far because we have all done some weird stuff, I feel like, within our career. What is the oddest job you've ever done? It could be to do with the industry, like within your realm, or it could be just a side hustle, or what those weeks when you're sat on your bum and you don't have income. What do you do?
I've done a lot of really weird things for film shoots. When I was 19, I was doing work experience on a Netflix shoot, and I spent a week getting really up and close with them. They let me do all sorts of bits and bobs, and at the end they said, do you want a few days of paid work? And I was like, yes, I'm in the money. I said yes, and they handed me a broom, and I was sweeping floors.
Oh my God!
On the last day of sweeping floors, they said, come, we need to go and do some. I was sweeping floors because I was on the design team, on the set dressing team. and they needed the floors to be clean. And
I should hope so. I hope they didn't just give you the broom just to.
They said, "Oh, we need to go help make some set dressings," and we drove out to a field with a van full of wooden furniture and some fireproof mats, and we were making a set for a burned down house. We set out the fireproof mats and we got out big burners, and we
Did you think this is where I die?
No, I knew what I was going to, but it was like the coolest thing I think you can ever get paid to do is take a truckload of furniture and burn it for an afternoon. So we were just setting things on fire and then putting it out, because it had to be like stable enough that a table could, if you just set a table on fire and it turns to ashes,
it crumbles. You had to like,
you may as well just get some ashes. So we're like artistically burning one leg, making sure it doesn't break enough, so it can still stand. But we want to like really sell that it's burnt. So maybe you like burn a hole in it. So that was really fun.
You were I don't know, not fire artists, because that's like fire blowing and breathing.
Yeah.
Like,
but
like burning artists. Like I don't even know
amazing.
how to.
So that was one thing. I've done a couple other things. I was doing a really small shoot. It was about an actress who had a disability, and she was played by Ruth Madeley, who was amazing, and she's lovely. It's her training a able-bodied actor how to convincingly use a wheelchair, and there's like a scene where he's like supposed to be trying to learn how to do a wheelie on his wheelchair, and he's supposed to fall on his back, and we're like tracking with them, and he has to fall over, and I'm just out of shot with a big blow up mattress, and I have to zoom on my belly and push the mattress under him just in time for him to fall over.
Oh my gosh, that's pressure.
And then the other one that was hilarious recently was a shoot in a hospital, and it was like a scene where a couple go to a checkup because the wife is pregnant, and we had a real ultrasound machine, and you can set the thing to be on a loop. So the plan was to just do a quick ultrasound, set the video on a loop, and someone in the crew was like, we can't get the actress to be the person who does this, because what if she's pregnant? That would be so horrible.
Oh yeah,
to
that's
reveal
so
that
true.
in front of the whole crew.
Yeah.
So I got pointed at to go on the thing. So I got an ultrasound that day. So my job on that morning was to get, Vaseline
bellied up.
Exactly. So my womb made it into the film, and turns out I wasn't pregnant, but
thank God.
Yeah.
You'd have been unexpectedly pregnant.
Yeah. But it was kind of funny, like staring and being like, I don't think I would ever otherwise get this opportunity.
Yeah, so, like when would I have an ultrasound and see my womb? Like that's pretty cool.
Since then, I can keep on going on these.
Let's do one more.
One more. I'm working on a short film right now, and it's got a scene in it where these two characters are running through a field at the same time that there are hunters shooting pheasants. And we wanted them to run through a field and pheasants fall from the sky. And a friend of mine made...
You got like taxidermy pheasants, or are they like...
We made a fake pheasant out of...
Did you just look around and see if you could find one?
No, that would have been great. We had this great... We spent like 2 days. So I have a friend who is a puppet and model maker. She works at the Lion King stage show at the moment, and she on her day off came and sewed us the pattern for a pheasant.
Amazing.
Stuffed it with stuffing, covered it with feathers, and we went into this field. We filmed them running across, and then it was my job to just lob a pheasant into the sky several times, which was hilarious.
So you've been a set burner, you've been a pheasant thrower, and you've been a womb ultrasound provider. That's how I'm going to sum those up.
There we go.
And I particularly love that first story of from Broom Sweeper for Netflix to burning the set that will actually be in the... And have you watched the series since? And
I did watch the series, and I think they must have cut the scene with it, because I could not see the stuff I burned on screen.
No. And you were literally like re-looking like...
Yeah. I managed to see one or two other things that I managed to get in there, but But
And that's the thing with TV and film. Things get
exactly.
cut.
Things
It's very different to live theatre, isn't it? Where everything is seen.
Yeah.
And everything's seen, even if you mess up. Yeah. that is the difference. And again, talking about doing lots of different things, I know this has kind of naturally come up a little bit when we've spoken about the fact that having lots of different jobs can sometimes mean that people don't think you're a master of one thing, and that can maybe be a hindrance. But are there any other like barriers to your kind of your craft overall, or specific part of your craft that, you know, you find it difficult at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of work going around at the moment, and I'm lucky because I'm doing lots of different things. So I'm usually able to find one thing where there's a job going at any one point. So I'm usually able to like hop from job to job. One thing I find as well is there'll be some jobs where I get enough work on and that'll be fine, but I'll want to try and do something else. So I'm getting work, for example. I get lots of work as a facilitator now that I've done my
welcome to the club.
Exactly. So I get quite a bit of work as a facilitator, but I want to be doing more work in, say, film. But a lot of these worlds, in order to get the regular work, you have to commit 100%, and I'm trying to commit 100% to 5 things. And so it's this really weird situation where in order to get the work I want, I have to start turning down work. But I'm not in the financial situation where I can do that. So it's just this weird catch-22 of, well, I want more work, but in order to get the work, I have to turn down other work, but I can't afford to
but I have to live
because I'm not getting enough work in that thing in the first place. So that's, I mean, it's a really weird niche one because I'm trying to juggle a couple of different creative worlds at once. But
honestly, though, I don't like. I think there's a lot of us that do feel that way. Like I feel that way on a regular, because even if I am financially stable, let's say flipping it on its head, even if I do have enough money that month, for example, I've got a little spreadsheet and I put in the month before, what have I got coming up? And like, have I got enough work to basically financially be stable that month? The boring bit. And even if if an opportunity comes in where I'm like, oh, that's going to like help the acting side of my career, or that's going to help the directing side, I'm not very good at saying no. So I will take it. And then I can feel quite overwhelmed. And I've really been focusing on lately that balance of giving 100% to something rather than 40% to everything, or not 40%, but like 80% to everything, you know, like just trying to manage that. And I think that's a constant battle because opportunities that are really exciting you can have months where that doesn't happen, and you're running the workshops, you're doing some sound engineering, yes, you know, those things are still within our world, and it still gives us that creative buzz, but it's not directing a film and shooting on a film set. It's not performing on stage. It's not doing immersive theatre. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the ticking along stuff, even though we're lucky that it's still in our industry, me and you, it sometimes doesn't always fuel that creative.
It's hard to say no. Learning to say no is tricky.
It's really tricky. And I think it's something that I always remind myself to say no. But then when it comes to it, I'm like, oh. And my husband is actually, I don't know if you find this with you, because your partner's not in the arts. My partner's not in the arts. He's the one that's like a bit of my, kind of the angel on my shoulder saying, you know, don't turn it down, Becca. Like, you don't need it. Is that actually going to progress your career? You know, I do actually want to see you. Don't work 7 days a week constantly. And also it's that like, don't burn out, so I'm very lucky that I've got a partner that realizes what I do and is a good influence in that. Do you find the same? I mean, your partner's a doctor.
No, my partner's always, so she's always working, so
so she's shift work as well.
She's shift work, so she's got no leg to stand on if she tells me to work.
Oh, okay. Whereas Nick's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, babe, you work in an industry that like pays you well. So let's not talk about that. Talking of being able to say no, and how many different art forms your career kind of spans, what gives you the most buzz? If you could pick one thing that you do and like you're like, this is it, that gives you the rush, what would it be?
Probably, well, film at the moment, because it's the one which is just out of reach, and I'm doing lots of paid work in very small roles, so lots of sweeping floors and making coffees and driving things, and more exciting stuff, but mostly that. And then I'm doing lots of unpaid work in very exciting roles, and it's the exciting thing at the moment is the exciting roles can start being a living, and that has been for a while, until recently, where I suddenly got a real buzz out of I never perform. I used to perform at school and university, but
Is this the circus?
yeah, I helped out a friend, funnily enough the same friend who introduced me to Blue Apple.
It's a good friend. It's a good friend. You get some exciting projects from this friend. Love it.
And he's now running a circus, and I went to go help. I thought just build the tent, and my cunning plan was to see if I could also get vaguely into the show, and I really wanted to see if I could get a line in the show. By the end of the run, what was great about circuses, it's like theatre, so live, but because it's like mostly unscripted, you can change it from night to night based on what worked, and which you can do in other theatre as well. But
the circus is very immersive. It's very playful. I know what you mean. There's something about it.
But by the last night, I had a bit where I was on stage dressed as a rabbit and diving through hoops, and it was a real rush of.
That's amazing, and I'm gonna need a photo.
So that was a real buzz of oh yeah, I forgot how exhilarating it is to make an audience smile.
Make them laugh, make them smile, and have that applause. Like it's a nice feeling, right?
So hopefully next summer that circus comes back. We'll find out, and they invite me back.
Oh my gosh! Well, if they need anyone else,
in the meantime,
dress up and dive through anything, let me know. Sounds like great fun.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of jobs, aren't they? That it's like, I'm being paid for this.
Yeah, like, exactly. That was amazing.
Those moments, I think, are just golden in our industry. No matter, how many floors we sweep, how many teas and coffees you make, how much free hours you give. Those moments where I think you're
dressed up as a rabbit and jumping through a hoop. Yeah,
getting paid. And it's those, like, I think we in the arts, we're very quick to think about what's next, and dwell on, I'm not. I'm still here and I'm still doing free work, and I'm not quite where I'm at, and not remembering those little golden moments, not holding on to them. I know I'm very quick to just be like, oh, that was great. Okay, what's next? What am I doing now? And where's the next paycheck? Where's the next good gig? So I really like that, to just like reflect on that and be like, that was a magical.
Yeah.
And live theatre for me is magical, and that's something that gets given. And again, talking about what you're working on at the moment, I know it's at the bottom of your email you had a film attached to it. Was it Ghost?
Oh yeah, so that was from last year. I'm working on a short right now. My last short was a short called Ghost Insurance.
I watched it. It was very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. You know me. Even before I worked with you at Blue Apple, I like website, I watch all your short films. I like to do my research.
But yeah, we're currently editing another short film, which has been really good fun. We're coming up to finishing the assembly, so it's about to go to music and sound and visual effects, which is really exciting. What's terrifying is we've already set a date for our cast and crew screening, so we have to get the film done by then because we've booked a venue.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So that's really
good. You're giving yourself a deadline that you have to do. Like, sometimes, artists that can be dragged in different directions, sometimes that's good.
Yeah.
I'm kind of telling myself that as well, because I've done something like that recently. Great. And so I was going to say, like, is there anything you want to shout about at the moment about what you're doing, as in, like, where can people find that? I'll put it all in the information in the bio of this podcast.
I'm rubbish at having any kind of presence ever. So
I was going to say, are you on social media?
Not really, no. When I make projects, it will be advertised on other people's social media. The film that I'm working on, there's a Instagram for it called Knackered Film, and I can spell
Great.
that out for you.
Yeah.
And then there's also, we're working with a production company called Accidental Donkey Productions, and they've got an Instagram as well.
And I followed them on YouTube because that was the film that was the film
Yes.
that goes that was made. So I thought, I'll subscribe to them. So it looked like they did some interesting shorts that have won some awards and interesting
done some
topics.
really cool stuff. At some point in the next couple months, I'm hopefully also releasing a little tiny video game that I did all the artwork for. And that at the moment, I hope it's still called this by the time it comes out, because otherwise I'm wasting a good advertising opportunity. But at the moment, it's called Prince of Darkness Jr., and
Nice.
it should be coming out by the end of the year. And it's a fun little puzzle game about a little vampire. So.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great. I want to play that. You've got loads to shout about, Django, so I'll get you to send those over to me and I'll publicise that for you. If you're not on social, I'm all over it. So I'll do that, because that's kind of one of the things this podcast is about, shouting about what we do, who we are, and just supporting every part of the arts that goes into doing it. So I hope you've had fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I'll chat to you soon. Bye.
See you soon, bye.